Hello and welcome to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. My name is Mehmet. I share daily insights about the latest trends and news in technology while discussing their business benefits. I also share stories about startups, founders, and entrepreneurs and the services and products they offer to their customers. Today, I'm very pleased to have a friend that we have met on a community, online community, and he's joining me here today to share a little bit about himself, about his journey, and about the technologies that he developed. My guest today is Uwe. Uwe, I will let you introduce yourself, what you have been doing. You told me some cool stuff in the preparation about how you started at the age of 14. So if you can just give us a little bit about yourself, what you have been doing, and a short introduction.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot, Mehmet, for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to, have a chat with you today. So I'm the founder of InvoiceBerry, an online invoicing software. I've been running that for 13 years now. And I've also recently launched a new product, BlogHandy, which is a no-code solution to add a blog to an existing website that you might have built with Wix or Shopify or any other website builder. So about me, I'm now since probably 24 years in the game. I started with online games, did ad server technology. I've done a lot of the CTO stuff, but also sort of a jack of all trades. Been, busy with so many different projects over the last 2 decades. It's hard to keep count.
That's cool. So InvoiceBerry is your first startup, right?
Yeah, so in InvoiceBerry, I launched it now over a decade ago. It's an online invoicing software for small business owners. We got businesses from around the world using us to send out more beautiful looking invoices and to also integrate with a variety of payment options, like Stripe, Square. We have some cryptocurrency options. We got a lot of that in the last few months or last few years, actually. People ask us about it. So we integrated with Coinbase and Coin Payments. I know a lot of your listeners are from the Dubai area. So we've got actually from Dubai some customers, I just checked it yesterday, who use our crypto integrations, which is quite cool. And yeah, so there we helped over 1 million small businesses around the world so far with sending the invoices.
Wow. Always, I like to ask this question whenever I meet a founder. So, because I will ask you also later on about your second startup, but I will start with this one. What was the driver for you? Like, what was really the motivation for you to start this business?
So with InvoiceBerry, it goes actually with both businesses. It goes back a long time. With InvoiceBerry, when I started at the age of 14 with my first business, legally I wasn't allowed to own a business back in Germany. So I had a business partner who was 10, 15 years my senior. And he was actually legally owning the business. And then once a month, I was sending him invoices. Well, actually, once a month, he gave me money. And then after a year, my parents' accountant told me, hey, you have to send him invoices if you receive money. So I started sending invoices. A year later, my parents' accountant asked me for that invoices. And I said, oh, oopsie daisy. I changed my laptop. Business is going well. I'm upgrading my laptop. And those files are on the old laptop. Now, remember, that's like over 20 years ago. So back then, we didn't really have Dropbox and the like, and we didn't have any sort of SaaS, invoicing cloud solutions out there. So even back then, I was thinking, hey, there must be something simpler than using, this USB drive, plugging it in, and so on. So I had it in the back of my mind for probably 20 odd years. And then when I moved to the UK to study there, after my studies, I was like, okay, what should I do next? I want to do something with small businesses. This is just, the people I love, the people I understand, especially micro small businesses. solopreneurs, freelancers. It's sort of my crowd. And I understood that the number one problem for them is just like simple invoicing. It's not accounting. They don't understand accounting. They're scared of accounting. You know, when you start about something technical with your parents and they're just like shutting their eyes and nose and ears. And it's exactly the same. All my friends around me, creatives, web designers, consultants, someone who owned a dance studio, they were just scared to even discuss anything related to HMRC, the tax man, accounting, or anything like that. So I wanted to make a very simple, intuitive solution. There was just like you logged in and you can just do a few clicks and that's it. There's nothing scary about it. We don't use any jargon. We don't try to overcomplicate anything, right? And so that's basically how InvoiceBerry was born. Firstly, for my own problem of losing my own invoices as a teenager, and secondly, just for my understandings that I'm quite lucky to have this technical understanding, the business understanding, and the sort of accounting understanding, and combining those three things, because most people are normally either creative or they sort of with accounting brains, but it's not very often that you have both things happening.
That's really cool. So you tried to solve your own problem, and then it turned out that you are solving a bigger problem for a large amount of, I would say, solopreneurs and maybe freelancers and so on. Now, how long it took with you to, I mean, let's call it version 0, that you started to evaluate it, and how long also it took with you to tell yourself, okay, I think now it's ready for, I can market it, I can ask people to start using it. So how long it took until you reached this phase?
So that's a great question. And I've basically done everything wrong, what you could do wrong, according to the blog posts and books you can read nowadays. So the first thing is I'm a perfectionist. So I kept on delaying the launch until I was 200% happy about it. So that's always an issue of mine. And obviously, also think back 13 years ago, we didn't have any no-code tools. So everything what you see was custom coded, hundreds of thousands of lines of code with a minimal amount of libraries or frameworks back then. Basically no code tools or anything used. So we reinvented the wheel on a lot of places. And additionally to that, I gave myself a challenge of trying to do it on a shoestring budget. So remember, I've already had businesses before InvoiceBerry. So I had some money ready, but I told myself I can prove, I don't know to who I was proving it, but I can prove that you can start a new business on a shoestring budget of like $100 or $200. I can't remember what the total was in the end. So I was actually developing stuff for other people in exchange for web design, for example, in exchange for SEO help and so on. So in the end, I think the version 2 took around, I'd say 8 to 9 months to launch. And once we launched, after the first 100 customers, we had to completely relaunch because I realized so many maybe mistakes or just the wrong assumptions I had, which were based on my experience, which worked for me, but maybe didn't work that well for others. So after the first 100 customers, we had to relaunch. This time it was way much faster because we had actual customer feedback constantly flowing in. But I'd say in total, it sort of took us 2 years to get to the second version of it.
That's cool. So you use pretty much something, maybe if people are familiar, there is a huge, community around this way. There is a book called Lean Startup as well. So where the idea is you have the idea, you go validate it, and then you try to launch it in a very simplistic way. And then you, as you said, like you take feedback and you keep it enhancing. And this is I like to study startups and entrepreneurs, and I feel sometimes the biggest mistake is that people are so stubborn. They say, no, the idea is great, I want to do it, I'm sure that it's gonna be a hit, but then they figure out it's not the case. Now sometimes it is, but yeah, for people, just I like to give this information, and I think we chat about this yesterday about you gave the example of Slack, for example, right? So how Slack was not intended to be what it is. So I just wanted you to share this story with who will watch or listen to this podcast.
Well, yeah, if you look at it, Slack, now obviously after they IPO'd and they were worth billions, they got acquired by Salesforce, I think last year or the year before. And if you look at their desktop app on Windows and on Mac, it's built by Electron, like using Electron, which is basically just a wrapper for a web app, right? And then, when we looked at InvoiceBerry to create a mobile app for InvoiceBerry, and I talked to a lot of development studios because mobile apps is not one of the areas of my expertise, everyone talked about having a native app developed for InvoiceBerry because you shouldn't use something like Ionic or Angular.js or any of those, frameworks, which basically just wrap your app into, like your web app into a wrapper in order to, be served on the mobile phone. And then you look at Slack being worth, I think, 20 or 30 billion US dollars, and they used Electron for it, right? And it just, that's how it is. And, that they're focusing on what's important. And, just to add to your other point, it's very interesting. Like even as an entrepreneur in my journey, when I was 14, 15 years old, creating my first online game, we ended up with 500,000 players, which back then, 20 years ago, was a ton of people. Not that, you still had to pay per minute to get into the internet. And back then, the first version of my game took me 1 weekend to create, right? Because it was bare bones. There was no design in the game. It was a white page. The links were still blue. Once you clicked them, they turned purple. Just, there was no Bootstrap CSS or Tailwind or any of the CSS stylings. So that was it. But this first version got me the first few hundred gamers. It helped me to find an investor, and it then helped me to, grew to 500,000 people within the next few years. And, it all started from like a Friday to Sunday, like hackathon, in my bedroom as a kid, right? And then already like a few years later, working on InvoiceBerry, I already inflated that. I was like, no, this isn't good enough. I have to, do some more work. And for example, with BlogHandy, it even took us over 2.5 years of secret, development time, which I'm a bit ashamed about now. And we just said last year, okay, let's just start launching it and get it out there and build in public, right? And this is what everyone is talking about nowadays, like to build in public rather than in private, just to build something. And as you said, you build, and then you realize, oh, actually, there's no market for it, or actually, it's a stupid idea, right? I think I have a good hunch in business and with what the consumers want, but still, there's so many side projects that didn't work out. And it would be a shame to work on something for, hundreds or thousands of hours and then realize nobody wants this.
100%, I agree with this because, from the books I read and the articles I read, this is very crucial that, and the ability to accept that sometimes, yeah, maybe the problem, I have it, I'm trying to solve my own problem, which is a good start for any entrepreneur when he or she, they want to start. But the market research, and if you don't have enough market research, your only way is to just launch it. And I think this trend now, of the build in public, I believe it's great because it gives the opportunity to test and pivot your idea very fast. Now, I'm a little bit here commenting because back in the days, I think the reason why people were a little bit scared to do it is because, oh, maybe someone will steal my idea. Maybe someone will be faster than me in going to market. But it was proven, I think, and I need also your opinion here, but it's proven, I believe, that ideas, yeah, they can be unique for a very short period of time. Like um, just when you announce it, the moment you are saying, I'm going to build this, believe it or not, people will start to copy you. So what's your take on this point?
100%. I feel, I mean, look, you can go to ChatGPT or your favorite AI tool, whatever it is, and just type in something like, give me 50 ideas for a new startup. And then, you can start. Obviously, that's a terrible prompt to give ChatGPT, but to keep refining that prompt to say, give me 50 ideas for a startup in Dubai regarding, I want to do something with coffee and with import export. And, like you keep feeding it some parameters and it will pop out all these ideas. And I mean, what is it in the end? It's just like some knowledge it acquired from all over the internet. And yeah, so I do feel that unique ideas, they're not there anymore, in my opinion. You look at the iPhone, it's just like a bunch, when it first launched, a bunch of like improvements here and there and just all mixed together, right? But at the end of the day, like you look at an invoicing software, right? So InvoiceBerry, again, like there were obviously invoicing softwares in the market before, but they were mainly desktop based, or they had like a lot of jargon, or, like a lot of other reasons. And even nowadays with like numerous invoicing softwares in the market, there's still new ones popping up, some very specific ones. Let's say an invoicing software for industry X in location Y, for age group Z, only for females. Like it goes very, very niche. And, this can be sort of a pivot. This can be a new idea, to do something for a very specific market. Like you don't just have Facebook, but you have, social networks for a very specific niche. And it's the same if you look at BlogHandy, right? Like blogging is there for a long time. And we've got WordPress, and we've got all the other blogging solutions out there. But the whole point why we started BlogHandy is because we thought there's a niche in the market for this specific way to implement the blog, for the simplicity and like all of the other features, right? So we are not trying to compete on, let's say, price or like a massive plugin list, but we're trying to actually go back to the roots. With all my companies, that's actually what I'm trying to do. And this is sort of, is it a new idea or not? I can't tell you. In my opinion, this is something going back to Jason Fried. For me personally, that's where I first heard about it. Jason Fried and DHH from 37 Signals, Basecamp. I read probably whenever it came out, like 13, 15 years ago, Getting Real, their first book. It came out. And he actually talked about it, to go back to simplicity, right? To look at what Excel offers and only offer the top 3% of the functionality. And this is when you look at any of my products since then, since I read this book, any of my products are based on that assumption. Take something complicated, make it simple for the user. It's only going to work for 90% or 80% of users because there are always edge cases. Someone wants something very specific, and we tell them, hey, there's a different solution. And we tell you, go to this competitor or go to that competitor if it makes more sense, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, I want to make money, but also I want to serve the community. I want to serve, the small business owner that trusts me, that I give him the best advice.
Yeah, me myself also in the consulting business as well, from technology perspective. This is very important because at the end of the day, the goal of any product is to solve a business problem. So
Right.
so it needs to be in that. And the other thing I want to say regarding about the innovations and the ideas, there's okay, like there are two kinds of, I would say, ideas that you copy. I mean, there is a copycat, and there is a version which I don't like to call it copy. It's, I would say, yeah, this idea is great. It was, pioneering in whatever problem it's solving, but actually it still have some friction to the user. And actually someone else will come and take the concept and build something more simple, maybe cheaper, maybe it's faster, like,
So
so
I just read yesterday regarding that an interesting story. So actually at InvoiceBerry, we've got a lot of auto repair shops as customers, mainly Australian, US, UK for the auto repair shops. And then I read an interesting story. There was a guy in Austria. He launched an invoicing software or management software, but with focus on invoicing, as far as I understand, for Austrian auto repair shops. But he literally drove from village to village and I think there are 2,000 repair shops in Austria. So he drove to each and every of them and talked to them. So in a way, he might have exactly the same solution what we are offering, but his uniqueness is not the software, but it's his approach to find the customer, right? Because it's a traditional country. I just came back from a skiing trip in Austria. Things are very traditional there. And, the auto repair shops in general is a quite traditional industry. So by him literally driving by car, stepping out, shaking someone's hand, this is how he does business. And it took him years, but he built up a very successful business. And he has the majority of shops in Austria using his software, right? So now, is it a copycat? I don't think so. I think it's more what you said, the latter thing, which is he just looked at the issue and he knew that he's never going to reach these guys with Google ads or with Facebook ads, right? He needed to get into his car and drive through the country.
yeah. Now, jumping on another topic, because you mentioned a couple of times. So, and I shared also on previous episodes about this topic, which is, and I just read something today, no code with AI is eating the world. So let's start with no code first. So being someone who developed your first SaaS based on a traditional, I would say, it's not, maybe the word traditional is not the right one, but I mean, you build a stack of the very famous one. You have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript using some framework. And that was available at that time, I believe. But today, and myself, I'm now in a boot camp for no code, and I'm there. I have the know-how, but I want to understand more about it. So tell me, what do you think about no code, and what do you think the opportunities are with no code?
Great question. So in my opinion, there are a few things to consider. I mean, the opportunities are just enormous, right? Like, because now we have people who have a bit of a technical understanding, but they might not be able to code, and now they can actually code with these tools rather than saving up money to hire someone off Upwork. And I think just the speed of execution, or even developers who know how to code, they just can use a no-code tool to whip up a new product page very quickly. Having said that, I've dabbled around with no-code tools a lot, but I haven't created any business or larger project yet with no-code tools, because I have the sort of skills to code it myself, and I have a development team as well. But what I really see there is one potential issue. You have to really know who you're betting on in a way. So what happened to us, not with no-code tools, but with frameworks at InvoiceBerry, is that early on, we were betting on a JavaScript framework. Instead of jQuery, we used another one. And then like a year later, it turned out that the other one died off. And obviously nowadays, everyone uses jQuery. So then we had to change frameworks, which wasn't a nice thing to do at the time, but it had to be done. So sometimes I feel with the sheer amount of no-code tools popping up, you don't want to maybe jump onto the bandwagon of a new tool too early for like a production sort of website, because then what happens if that tool, can't deliver, it's not hosted on a good infrastructure or anything else, you don't want to have this learning curve of, like going hundreds of hours, going through the documentation, learning about it, and then just shutting down the tool. So I'm always a bit worried about that. It's sort of the platform risk, so to speak. But I mean, once you've sort of made up your mind what tools to use for your new projects, what makes sense, I think you can cut down development times by 80-90% in some cases. And, as mentioned with Slack, they didn't create a native app. They used Electron for the desktop app. And so even the big guys are using it. When you look at Ionic, it's more frameworks than a no-code tool, but it's used by a lot of big corporations and even by no-code tools. Like a lot of them obviously are nowadays used like where you have like a no-code tool plus Notion plus something else all mixed up. And you have people, making 10K, 20K monthly recurring revenue with such a setup, right? And they haven't coded a single line of code. So I do feel it's getting easier for marketeers who understand a bit of the technical side, for sure.
Cool. I would put my comments here, and I would say what I feel, of course, because I've been exploring this space for quite some time, like more than 2-3 years. I even tried just for fun, I would say, build something. What is really exciting about these tools, I have the technical background, but if someone completely strange from technology world, really they can put up something, at least back in the days, they used to call it the mockup, right? So actually it gives you more than a mockup. It gives you pretty much, you can call it an MVP, minimum viable product. So something that people can really test. It's a very good point to start. The other thing is, which is very critical, what you mentioned, is relying on the technology or the platform that you will host. This is because I had a chat also with someone the other day, and the same topic came. And it's not only with with no-code tools, because just to remind people, like sometimes when, for example, I read an article 2 years back. So there are people who relies on Facebook ads, for example, and all of a sudden Facebook decide that they want to change something in their policies, and then they say we lost business. Same thing happened recently with Twitter as well. So Twitter decided to change, to put a garden gatekeeper, I would say, for their APIs and things. So the risks are always there, but I agree with you, especially when you are developing something. I prefer not just to have the control, but I would say backup plan, right? I'm a guy who talks a lot of risk mitigations as well on cybersecurity level. So part of this, and I believe risk should be considered in everything. Now, because, like we still have around like 5 minutes time. So just lastly, what is your take on AI? And are you planning to integrate AI with whether the InvoiceBerry or with BlogHandy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, AI, very interesting. I've played a lot around with it. I think at the moment we're at that time where we should all be playing around with it. I do feel anyone who has bad opinions about it because, they typed something in, coming back to the example earlier, give me 50 business ideas. They obviously haven't understood if you go to a bar to your buddy or to a stranger, let's say you go to a stranger who doesn't know you and you say, give me 50 business ideas. This stranger already has more ideas because he knows in what bar you are. He can look at your face and, maybe at your clothes. He can, he knows if you're male or female. He knows in what location you are. So if you go to ChatGPT, you first have to build or any other AI, right? I'm just saying ChatGPT because that's a big thing right now. I feel people have to give more of the environment, right? They have to tell more what's happening actually. So what we're trying to do this year at BlogHandy is actually adding a bunch of AI functionality within BlogHandy because we're trying to get like a holistic view on the blogging experience. So the first step is obviously how can someone who doesn't have a blog yet, how can they get started? So they have to be able to install it in a very simple way rather than WordPress, which can be very overwhelming. The second step was that we automatically take over your existing website's design with our solution. So you don't have to hire a designer. So now we're at this step, all of this works already. So now we're at the next step where we're saying, hey, how can we make the actual writing experience better? I don't believe in asking AI, to write an entire blog post, but obviously there are loads of things in between where AI can be helpful to, improve your experience. If it's in, creating custom images, helping you to pick images, helping you with some headline ideas, some keyword optimization ideas and so on. So there's loads of new features currently being discussed in the team. And in general, from a personal level, I'm really, really excited because, this is where we are right now with AI. And I think by the end of the year, we will, make a massive step and it just will, exponentially grow. It's not going to get worse, right? And anyone who complains now about issues, it's like, of course, the iPhone 1 also wasn't amazing compared to the current version, whatever it is, right? And, every time, especially the first few jumps, will be massive leaps, right? So I'm really excited about that.
Actually, me too. And actually, you brought an important topic. So before we close, I want to add a few things here. I believe, the prompt design, and I saw something, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but they are paying a huge amount of money for the ones who comes up with the right prompts.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. There's some good salaries.
A prompt engineer. After now, I'm a heavy user of ChatGPT and others. I believe again that the opportunity is huge there, but whether it's you think about from technology or business perspective. And what I want to say is, I believe also there's an area which is people, it's not taking too much, put a lot of observation or comments about it, which is the other part of OpenAI, which is the DALL-E 2, and this you create these arts and create videos and so on. So I think this is another area. Now we just get 1 minute. Anything you want to advise fellow young people, anyone who's looking to start their journey in technology, because my show is the CTO show. So what's your advice to fellow entrepreneurs?
So I feel trying to play more, right? To specialize later on, rather to be a jack of all trades, to try to understand business and marketing and tech and accounting and numbers and creativity. Take some random, if you're at university or whatever, take some random classes that just don't make sense maybe right now. They might make sense later on, right? This is sort of what I only last year read Steve Jobs' biography, and he talked about this class where he learned to write, actually, the calligraphy class. And it's a random class, right? but it helped with the fonts on the Mac, later on. And it just has this ripple down effect. And it's the same what I can see here with AI nowadays. Just, play around, play like a day with ChatGPT, play a day with Stable Diffusion, play with some other AI tool, and just, with all the no-code tools, right? Like go on like a challenge, 100 days, 100 different AI tools or no-code tools, right? And just try to play around and, obviously learning by doing, right? And just, make the most out of that first. And then, maybe niche down into some direction. But first, just explore what's out there.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Uwe, for this, I would say, nice discussion today. And it's my first, also maybe the people who will watch and listen. So Uwe was generous enough to be my first guest as an entrepreneur, being one who founded 2 startups. So expect more like this in the future. I hope that you like this episode. If you have any comments or you have any questions, also I will share the profile of Uwe if you want to connect with him over LinkedIn. So feel free also to add him and follow his companies. And thank you very much. And until we meet next time, thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.